Welcome to the second in our Ardenwood Presents 3-month webinar series on the timeless blessings of planned giving. Today, we are presenting an overview of long-term care. I'm John Mitchell, and I serve as Executive Director and CEO of Ardenwood here in San Francisco. We thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few thoughts on today's topic, long-term care for Christian Scientists. Why are we talking about this when Christian Science illustrates or illuminates the promise of healing? Because Christian Scientists are wise. They are prepared for unexpected moments of inspiring discontent. Inspiring discontent, it's actually from a marginal heading in Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. Christian Scientists make informed personal decisions in order not to be a burden to their families, not physically and not financially. Good estate planning includes informed consideration of care options, and that's what Jim and Katie will explain today. I'd like to add an important personal observation here. A lawyer is often not a specialist in long-term care insurance like Jim Maher, or a specialist in estate planning like Rick Bailey. As in any profession, one should be wise about contacting the right person for the job. I've seen many instances in which the donor's attorney did not have the expertise to understand the nuances of more sophisticated planning. And in so doing, they discourage their clients from availing themselves of their best options. In the case of your estate planning, you want to have the right professionals. It'll make all the difference. We offer these webinar presentations and Q&A sessions to support you through the estate planning process. Please be in touch with us with any questions. As always, our contact information will appear at the end of this presentation. And finally, the content shared today is only informational and is not intended to be legal advice. And now, let me introduce Jim Maher and Katie Burris, who will give today's presentation and answer questions at the end. Rick is tending to a family matter today, but he hopes to join us for the Q&A on Thursday. Jim Maher is a certified senior advisor and a brokerage consultant specializing in Medicare. He also is a long-term care insurance strategist. Jim has talked to more than 1,200 Christian Scientists since our first webinar, answering innumerable questions about Medicare, long-term care insurance, and estate planning. He has been a tremendous blessing to our field. And from what he's told me, and from what you've told me, he has loved meeting, and you've loved meeting him and working with all of you. Katie Burris is a Medicare specialist and certified long-term care consultant, helping individuals with their Medicare and long-term care planning strategies. Katie is a partner at McGrew and Maher Insurance Services and has been in the business for 17 years. She is licensed for life insurance, long-term care, and Medicare in several states. Just as a reminder, you can submit questions using the Q&A icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And now, let's hear from Jim and Katie.
All right, thank you, John. Good afternoon, everyone. Hey, Katie.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Right, thanks for the nice introduction, John. And so you can see the screen up there. It's got a little about our information, and we'll have more at the end, right, with our contact information. So today we're going to talk about a super important concept that's vital to not only retirement, right, but taking care, like John says, your family and not being a burden. It's something a lot of people don't want to talk about until something happens, and then it's too late. All too often we hear, I wish we would have done that. Gee, Jim, we should have done that. We didn't. Is it too late? Right, Kitty? We get those calls all the time. So
we do. Some updates on long-term care plans. So we are always looking for new options for Christian Science-friendly insurance companies. Over time, insurance companies' rules and regulations changes, and we're always on the lookout for new options.
They changed the rules on us, and John knows we've been diligent about trying to find Christian Science-friendly insurance companies, and we found a couple, and sometimes they change the rules on us, but we found another one we're going to introduce later in this presentation today that we think may help. In other words, most insurance companies do not understand Christian Scientists, and I'm sure you're used to telling people that, but they just don't. You almost scare them because you're too healthy and you live so long. Insurance companies kind of look at that sometimes like, well, where's all your medical records? Which is a big issue with insurance companies. And so we found another one that's willing to, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but we're constantly trying to find companies that will work with Christian Scientists, and they're very, very limited. So we're fortunate enough to have found a few that will help. And we're going to talk about those later today.
So we always talk about long-term care not being a place or a condition, but it's a life-changing event, not only for the person that needs care, but for also the people providing care.
That's the most important, right? I used to tell people all the time, they look at me, it's not about you, it's about them. So it's not about Joe, it's about Joe's family and how it impacts. That's what long-term care really impacts.
So long-term care is when care is needed when you cannot perform activities of daily living. So they refer to them as ADLs. So think of things like transferring when you need to get out of a chair, get into bed, toileting, bathing, dressing, eating, and then also if you have a cognitive impairment.
Right. I always try and think of it like, it's what you do in the morning, right? So if I'm working and I'm unable to perform substantial duties of my occupation, they go, you're disabled. So when I'm not working and retired, the insurance companies came up and said, well, we've got to figure out a way. How do you tell if somebody is like disabled? And they created these activities of daily living. If you can't, it used to be 2 of 7, but now it's 2 of 6. So I just think of it in the morning, right? You get up or get out of bed. If I need some type, I always talk about my father who passed at 102, but he didn't really have any issues till about 100, right? But one of them was kind of getting out of bed in the morning. It was kind of hard. You kind of have to get started, give yourself a little momentum to get up. And then he would use the facilities, the bathroom, hopefully shower, dress. So if you think of it in that order, and eating, maintaining control of yourself all day of some type of cognitive impairment. But that really helps. And that's how insurance companies look and say, if you can't do 2 of these 6, then you
qualify for the benefits.
You qualify for the benefits, right? Of the insurance, assuming you have the insurance.
So we want to show you how to protect your most important asset, being your family. So when we talk about long-term care insurance, it's a policy that provides a tax-free stream of money to cover long-term care expenses. So when you can't do those activities of daily living, right, it covers you at home. So a lot of people don't realize that. So if you need a home health aid or modification, if you want care from family members, there are certain types of policies that will allow you to do that. It also covers you in a licensed facility, and it covers you in an accredited facility like Ardenwood as well. And some of those plans do. Right.
Some of the plans do. And that's important too. So, what I found throughout this is my 33rd year of doing this, that when the IRS wants you to do something, they give you a tax break or some type of tax credit. In this case, they're telling people, listen, you can put money into a policy, allow it to grow, and pull it out tax-free for long-term care. So when the IRS gets behind something and makes it so it's either deductible or that it's tax-free, that's a big deal. The government really they don't want to be on the hook for long-term care. No. So that's why they're trying to provide an enticement for you to say, if I get some type of policy, I'm going to receive tax-free benefits. That's huge.
And they're continuing to look at ways to make long-term care policies easier to get, and then also to use certain monies that you couldn't use before. And right, we can talk about that later.
And while we're talking, because on here we have some insurance lingo, and we always apologize. We try not to use insurance lingo. So on there it says home health aid, care by family members or loved ones, indemnity plans. An indemnity plan is best for Christian Scientists as that's a cash plan. In other words, if like you trigger those benefits, right, it pays you cash, and I can use that money for whatever I want. If I want to take a trip, if I want to bring my grandchildren in to help care, if I want to pay a neighbor to go grocery shopping, take me to church, take me to wherever, that's cash they pay me every month. Most plans are like a reimbursement where you have to incur a cost. Those are good. I mean, I've used those for 30 some years and those work really well. For Christian Science, so the indemnity is really nice because it allows you to go to an accredited facility, for example, like Ardenwood.
So when you have a long-term care policy and you trigger those benefits, so you need help with those activities of daily living, a lot of long-term care policies also offer coverage for things that we refer to as the instrumental activities of daily living. Think of it like the practical side.
Right.
So shopping, transportation, cooking, laundry, cleaning, housekeeping, bill paying, all those kind of things where you need help running that household on a day-to-day basis.
That's exactly right. And I talked about my mother-in-law, and unfortunately, she's still at that point where she needs help with each one of these. And unfortunately, we talked about before, she lapsed her policy. So my wife and my sister-in-law are doing all these things for her, right? Because she can't do them. We're afraid if she uses, quite honestly, if she tries to cook something and leave the stovetop on. So with a policy, with the right type of policy, you can have somebody come in and do those things for you, which is peace of mind for your family, right? That's what it's really about. Not using those monies and peace of mind for your family.
And in the absence of having a policy, Jim's wife has actually retired now to care for her mom more full term.
And listen, my wife's incredible, and I would never say, that's a burden to her, but she did change her lifestyle to take care of her mom out of, love for her mom. And it's unfortunate because if we had that policy before, because it does cause a hardship. Even I can see in our family where, it's like, where are you going again? I'm helping, my mom. My boys are asking, where is she? And well, she's helping mom, things like that. So it's just much easier to have money set aside, right? To pay for those services so that your adult children or grandchildren or neighbors or friends have to come in and help.
So as a Christian Scientist, do you expect a long life experience? Planning for that long life experience is a necessity, and planning for long-term care takes the pressure off family members and friends as well.
Right. All too often we hear, well, I'm not going to worry about that because I have the money and somebody in my family will take care of me. Some of my family friends will take care of me. I found out over the years that every time somebody says, well, I've got a lot of friends, the first thing friends usually ask you is if Katie needed care. It's like, where's your family? Where are they? Well, I've got all these friends. Yeah, but where's your family? They're the ones that are supposed to take care of you. Friends are awesome. Church friends, associates want to help out too. They can help you do some of the things, maybe take you to church or a doctor's office appointment, something like that. But all too often, it's like, where's your family, right? It falls on the shoulders of your children or your spouse.
So long-term care planning options. So if you haven't done any sort of planning, then by default, you would be self-funding. So it's not necessarily a problem, but what it can be is it can be a cash flow crisis. Because what a lot of people don't factor in is that long-term care expenses are on top of your normal expenses.
That's right.
So especially when you have a two household, if one needs care, the second one still needs to pay the home expenses, still needs to live and have all those expenses. And now you have the long-term care expenses in addition to. And
we see that all the time when they, like Katie says, a cash flow crisis. I've told you about my father when we had to liquidate an apartment home. It was a small 4-unit place in San Jose, but we had to do that in 2008 when the market crashed. How horrible, right? Because he, excuse me, he didn't have the monies.
And he needed care at that time, and that was how they paid for it.
That's exactly right.
The second option is Medi-Cal or Medicaid. Not a lot of people qualify for this because it's based on assets and income. What it does is it takes the control that you have. So you don't get to be in the driver's seat, so to speak, to make your decisions because those are being made for you as far as where you can receive care.
And I'm not too fond of the state of California making decisions for me, quite honestly.
The third option is insurance. So everyone thinks of like the traditional plans, the use it or lose it, but there's so many different types of plans available depending on what works in your budget and what works as far as what your long-term care plan looks like. And it's a way for you to transfer the risk to an insurance company.
Right. It's really interesting. When I first started, I used to listen to stories about, well, you insure your car, you insure your home, for fire, and yet those things very seldom ever happen. Yet as we age, most of the time this is going to happen. We're going to need some type of assistance down the road. So it's funny, we insure the things that we really don't need to at the time. The ones we really need to as we age, we don't insure that.
So as part of a retirement plan, long-term care should be in it. Whether you've decided you're self-funding, whether you want to get insurance, it should be something that's talked about both with your planner, your family. We can also help with that conversation as well. The problem that we see from talking to people is most of the time, your retirement plan fails because you've left out that missing piece. Retirement plans have not prepared for a long-term care event, for if you need to take more money out of an investment or an account.
Right. We talk about all the time. I gave the example last time. We had an individual who was going to self-fund, and he had a lot of money, quite honestly. He had several $1 million, and he said, I'm going to give my broker $1 million. And I'm going to self-insure, and he's going to take care of it. I'm not going to worry about that. And my attitude was, why don't you give me half of that money instead of $1 million, 500,000, and let us show you how to put that in 2 policies where that grew to over $1 million each in 20 years, guaranteed. Not if the market goes up or down. And by the way, where do you think the market is today from that? I mean, he's down almost 25%. So the $1 million that he still has is now less than $800,000. So it doesn't matter if you're going to live on that money, right? And the market's going down. It's just prudent to do something and set money aside, even if you're going to self-fund, do something. But it's important. Sooner or later, you're going to have that conversation, right, Katie? Mm-hmm. And nobody wants to with your parents or your children. What are you going to do if something happens?
And it's a conversation that my husband and I have had with my mother-in-law, because her retirement plan, her long-term care plan, is that she wants to live with us. And that's not necessarily in our long-term plan. Right. And we don't know that we can physically or financially support that. And so that's something that has to be talked about and worked out for sure.
Right. And so the answer would be, okay, if your mother-in-law had a long-term care plan, listen, I love my mother-in-law. I know you love your mother-in-law. I wouldn't be so bad, but to have the monies, because that's expensive. If they had a room in the house where you could have somebody come in that helped them with all the activities of daily living, if they need some help bathing and dressing and things like that, and their hygiene, I would be okay with that. But on the other hand, if you've got a family to take care of, where are you supposed to get the money to do that?
Correct.
Right. So
you will hear us repeat this over and over and over again. Medicare does not cover long-term care.
It does not, because people ask us all the time, especially non-Christian scientists, well, I've got Medicare. I think I'm good. I don't need to do any long-term care planning. And it's not. It's very limited, and it's for skilled care, not custodial type care, which most long-term care is, right? If you at home or in some type of facility, it's more custodial in nature, not skilled.
So providing care disrupts the emotional and physical well-being, especially of those that have to provide the care. Because we've seen so often those that are providing the care are also getting ill as well. And it can cause issues with adult children. We had a client recently with 2 daughters.
Right. And we never use I'm going to change the name because I got to call her something. I'm going to call her Laura, for example. And Lauren's been a client for about 20 plus years. And she has 2 adult daughters. One lives close. And this is a town about 30 miles from us. The other lives probably about a good 45 to probably about an hour drive. And they love their mom. And she had an incident now that's going to require care, home care, right? She needs help with some of the activities of daily living. So the daughters call us, and we've done my partner Dawn had done their finances forever. And they had a particular, I'm just going to say they had an annuity. And she has a pretty good sum of money sitting on the side. And the daughters they're so worried about, we love our mom, but what money are we going to use? One daughter is incredibly concerned with her mom taking care of her. The other daughter is incredibly concerned about what assets are we going to use, right? It's kind of behind when you read through it. It's like, what inheritance are we going to be using to take care of mom?
And one of the daughters is actually moving Laura into her house so that she can care for her full
That's
time.
right.
And this is where the long-term care policy, and we've helped trigger those benefits so that she can start getting the benefits, because the daughter is still working. And so she needs someone to come in, because Laura unfortunately needs to be watched. She needs someone to help
Right.
take care of her full time.
Right. And it's funny because once we set their mind at ease about the money, it's like, oh, okay, money's there. It's there for mom. It's going to be used now. All those other monies are going to be okay. That's going to go to the daughters, and we're going to preserve as many of those assets as we possibly can. So she had done the planning.
Correct. So if you ever need care, your life is not going to end, but somebody's lifestyle is going to end, especially if they have to provide that care.
Right. I keep telling stories because it's true. I took a policy out almost 20 years ago because I want to make sure that I would not be a burden to my children. I see this all the time. Most people don't. So I see it. So I took mine out years ago when it was so inexpensive. And now those monies, I started off with I think it was $100,000. I'm up to over 500,000. By the time I need it, it'll be over $1 million. And I'll have paid into it, I don't know, maybe $12,000 or $15,000. So that's the kind of leverage I was looking at. I want to use the other monies. I want to take care of my family. I want to take care of charities. I want to use those monies for other things. I don't want to have to worry about setting aside $500,000 or $200,000 for care if I need it. So that's what was important to me. I think people, we're going to talk about the circle of care here in a minute, but people do out of things of love for their family. And I think that's how I look at my long-term care. I love my family. I do not want to be a burden to them at all.
So you have the care recipient, so the person that needs care, and the primary caregiver. The primary caregiver could be a spouse or an adult child, and then it just really depends on how hands-on they have to be, depending on what type of long-term care policy or plan is in place, or if there isn't one. You have a secondary caregiver. So in the case where we were talking to Laura's two daughters, we had the primary one that's going to house her and have her live with her. And then the other one, unfortunately, like Jim says, lives 50 miles away. So she's there more for support and she can help, but just not as often because she's so far away.
Right. A secondary caregiver in my world too, with my mother-in-law, would be like myself or my brother-in-law, where we go over and we take the garbage out, or we mow the lawn, we do clean the backyard, we do things like that. That may be a secondary caregiver, as where my wife and my sister-in-law are doing the primary caregiving.
And then you also have community support, friends, neighbors, family, friends, stuff like that as well.
Are those the ones judging you for what kind of care you're? I've never seen so many people have an opinion. If you don't know somebody's opinionated, just tell them you're doing something, taking care of someone, they'll have an opinion. It's amazing how many people have opinions about the care you should be providing, that you're not providing, that you should do it this way. And I see it all the time. I see it in my family. I come from a large family. I had it with my dad. No matter what I did, I took care of him. No matter what I did, I had people on the side saying, well, you should have done this, or you should have kept them home, or other things like that. So you just try your best, but all too often I see that, right? And
that's where it's really important to plan ahead, that if and when you need care, where do you want to receive care? Right. Who do you want to provide it? How will you pay for it, or who will pay for it? And how will it change family dynamics? So thinking about that ahead of time, you can really put that plan in place so that it makes it easier when your child or your loved one has to provide care, that you've thought about that and planned for that ahead of time.
Right. Most people, quite honestly, everyone we talk, if I want to receive care, I want to receive it at home. You stay at home until you can't stay at home, until your loved one can't take care of you. Next step is some type of a facility where they're going to provide care. And if you don't have the monies, that's where you get that argument. Well, it costs so much to put mom or dad there, so let's try and keep them home as long as possible. So
monthly cost of care. So I know last year we went over the 2021 numbers. 2022 had a bit of a jump. We know with inflation, everything's going up. So when we talk about a home health aide or somebody that has to come out and help, like with Laura, to help out, do some of those chores around the house, Last year, the monthly expense was about $7,150. We're looking a little over $7,300, and the expectation by 2032 is that that will be almost $9,900 a month.
Right. And so just so you know, we did not use Social Security's definition of inflation right now, because those numbers would have been too scary. We ran it at about 3%. And we know it's higher than that, but the bottom line is we want to show people, look, it's going to be more expensive and someone's going to pay for it. You know, there's better things you can do with your money than paying for care. You just can't. There's better ways to help your family and charities, I believe, than giving all that money to some care facility, quite honestly.
And we also put up, if you need like a private room in an assisted living facility, a nursing home type, what those expenses are based in California. So those numbers fluctuate on where you live, but we've seen that they're all going up, unfortunately.
It's a lot. It's getting higher. When I first started back in the late 80s, I sold a policy to this lady. She won one. She was a teacher. She wanted, back then, it was usually $75 to $100 a day. She wanted a policy for $150 a day. I had to clear it through the insurance company to make sure that they thought I wasn't doing something, you know, that wasn't in her best interest. She had to write a letter saying that I want this amount of coverage, because quite honestly, back then, they were thinking that I'm overselling a plan by selling something over $100 a day. And now these numbers are astronomical, right? $150 a day doesn't, better than nothing, but it doesn't do a heck of a lot for you anymore.
So when we're talking CS-friendly plans, we're using life insurance or annuities with long-term care benefits built in. And we're doing that so that you can leverage your money. So when we're talking about leveraging your money, and we'll give you some examples of real life clients we've done recently, and they're not your parents' type of long-term care plans. They're very different than they used to be. They have a tax-free long-term care benefit and a tax-free death benefit as well. And then we know those indemnity or those plans that pay out the cash benefit are the most CS friendly.
Right.
It allows you to increase the money that you do have to go to your family or to your charities, not to have to spend that on long-term care expenses.
That's right. You know, as I age, welcome, I've been doing this 33 years and I turned Medicare eligible tomorrow, right? So I found out things change in my life, and stuff you don't worry about all of a sudden as you start to age, I worry about. I want to be able to take care of my children, not only my wife, but my children, charities that I believe in. And I'm a big believer. I've seen life insurance, you know, it's a way to increase, instead of leaving $1, I can increase that to $4 or $5 or $6. So I want to make sure I maximize what I can leave behind as my legacy. Right? Rick always talks about leaving a legacy or planning your legacy. Well, I might not have a huge legacy, but I want to make sure whatever I have, I can maximize those dollars.
And I know we mentioned earlier, but we are constantly talking to insurance companies as new products are being released, things are being changed, always educating them, unfortunately, because they just don't understand Christian Scientists, and trying to find different products that will work. This is a client we did recently with an annuity. She is 65. In this case, she put in $150,000 of premium. That's not standard. You can put less than that, more than that.
I've done them for 59,000, 280,000, 170,000. We've done them for all kinds of amounts. It's really what you're comfortable with. We've taken other old annuities and we've done a tax-free exchange into these newer annuities too, where you can get more long-term care benefit on it. But this is a live example. We just did this and we thought about, quite honestly, changing that number, but this is one where she actually did this.
So we went through and we looked. So let's say if she needs care at 75, that 150 would be $500,000 worth of benefit for her. Right. And the monthly payment that she would receive is just about $7,500. We did put, and we normally do put in inflation on there. Mm-hmm. So you can see, let's say at 85, she needs care. It's over $760,000 worth of benefit. and that monthly benefit is over $12,000 that she would get.
So to me, that's leverage. I have leveraged $150,000 into a policy that I know if I do need it for care, right, I'm going to have, what's that, 5 times? And if I age, if I don't use it for long, maybe 6 times the amount. That's leverage. That means if I did need $700,000, I don't need to pull that from a 401k or an IRA or a brokerage account or a CD that I have money sitting in there. I've got that taken care of. As a matter of fact, it's kind of interesting because there's a program out there where you can triple, right, the monies you put in. Most non-Christian scientists cannot answer no to all the health questions. Christian scientists we deal with, you're blessed with incredible health because most everyone, you can get what's called a tripler. In other words, if I put in the 150,000 instead of it doubling to 300,000 for care, a Christian scientist may be able to get 3 times that amount or 450,000 for care. Think about that because you can answer the health questions no. Insurance companies look at that and they go, "You're sure?" Well, we're going to call them. I said, you can call them, re-ask them the questions, which they do. Right, that's standard operating procedure, regardless if you're a Christian scientist or not. But they call and ask the questions, no. So now we've taken 150 and leveraged that in to 5 to 6 times, maybe more, even if you need it for care. If you need it for care. Here's the question: what if they don't need it for care?
Then there's always a death benefit that's paid out on these policies that we're using, like this annuity. There's a death benefit that gets paid out.
Right.
And then just so you know, so when Jim talks to insurance companies, when we're explaining Christian Scientists and they're talking about what they require to get the policy, if they at all mention medical records are required, next, go to the next policy, go to the next insurance company. So that's a deal breaker. We always move on and find all the Christian Science friendly plans we can.
Right. And like I said before, insurance companies just don't understand Christian Scientists. And quite honestly, I didn't until, about 4 years ago. And now I do. So it's really important for us to find companies. They'll say, listen, we'll, in lieu of medical records, we'll do a phone interview. Some require a paramed exam where a nurse comes out and asks you questions, height, weight, all that kind of stuff too. And we're going to talk about that. I think we did a life insurance one here too, right?
We did.
Oh, so next, okay, here it is.
So in this case, our client was a male.
Right.
He put in 175,000 of premium. And then same thing, we were able to show him if he needed care at 75, that total benefits over 560,000, about $7,400 a month. In this case, this is an indemnity type policy. So that's a cash benefit that he's getting in this case.
And it's interesting, like we didn't make these ages up. They came in here for Medicare. We talked about Medicare at 65 and we said, oh, by the way, he said in this, I don't want to say his name, Mr. J, right? He had a life insurance policy. He had about $153,000 in this whole life insurance policy. And I go, what are you going to do with that? He goes, well, I was going to cash it in and maybe I'll use it for that care stuff. I said, I got a better idea. Did you know the IRS will allow you to exchange that into another policy? So all your gains, right, all your taxable gains, roll it into this policy here, not pay any tax. And you can now use it. We can put a rider on there for long-term care. He was healthy enough where he qualified for it. And as a matter of fact, he wrote us a check. He wanted we showed him different amounts. For some reason, he didn't like 153, he didn't like 200, but he liked 175. So, and that was absolutely fine. That worked with his budget. But look what it did. And the wife was ecstatic. She's like, well, this is great. I thought we were going to, cash in that policy and buy another RV. And it's like, well, why? So we show them again how to take something that's taxable, turning into tax-free and just increasing that amount. So when Mr. J does need coverage down the road, he's got a lot more than 175,000. We keep saying leverage, right? And the death benefit, right? Tax-free death benefit. So again, I love this concept because monies that he has over here that he's thinking about for his adult children or whatever, now he can use it more. And he's got a lot of, Mr. J is very charitable too. So I said, now you have more money you can use for your local church here. He's very, very good about helping the local church too. So I really love that concept. That's when we talk about leverage, right? Take your money, turn it into 5, 6 times for care if you need it. If not, it's going to go tax-free to someone.
So there's a new, more of the traditional type policy through National Guardian Life. We've been talking with them. That company was established in 1909. They're a mutual insurance company with over $5 billion in assets.
Mutual companies are good. That's kind of interesting because they're actually owned by the policyholders versus a stock company that's owned by shareholders. It's just, it's good, right? They usually put, people ahead of profit. Some mutual companies are good, but this is a company we've talked to, and they said, listen, we've got a traditional policy, but if you pull it up here, they've got some riders on these policies that will allow you to get all your money back if you don't use it, right? There's a cost for that, but so what? They're flexible. They have different types of policies where, for example, if Katie had a 2-year plan and I had a 2-year plan, instead of each of us having a 4-year plan, which would cost more, right? You have to pay more for the longer periods of care. We could get a third shared pool to your benefit. So if I needed all 4 years, I could use my 2 and then the shared care pool. Katie would still have hers left. So we had to try and negotiate with them to say, listen, Christian Scientists are incredibly healthy, and would you be willing to waive the medical records? And they came back and said, look, we will waive the medical records, but we will probably do a phone interview and require a paramed exam where a nurse would come out and ask you, the health questions, things like that. So that's about as good a deal as we could find, that at least they're willing to take you without a hard no.
And so some companies will do just phone interviews. There's different levels. So if it's something that you're interested in, we would always tell you, here's the different options, here's what they would require. So
Right,
you know ahead of time. So we like turning unpredictable into predictable. We do that by having some sort of long-term care plan in place. So your family and friends aren't caregivers, unfortunately, like Jim's wife. And then your family can supervise care. They don't have to provide it.
It is so much easier to supervise care. I'm telling you, I've seen that with families. When we have around here locally, if somebody, one of our clients has a claim, we actually go out, we help them, right, access the monies, their family access the monies. The family members, the adult children, are so thrilled that they don't have to provide care, that mom had this policy taken out so that now they can supervise care. It makes life so much easier when you have monies to take care of that. If not, they're going to start using their IRA money or their 401k money, quite honestly, and spending that down.
What we see really often is in the case with Laura and other clients, where we have an instance where all of a sudden they need care. The kids come in, the grown children come in and they go, okay, well, we see what's coming in, but mom or dad may need more care than this. Where are we going to get the money from? And having that long-term care plan in place, it's here you go. They qualify for the benefits that starts coming in to pay and help pay those expenses.
Right. That's exactly right. So you protect your retirement assets and leave more money to family and your favorite charities.
So please don't let this happen to you where you haven't planned and you're having to clean up a mess.
We used to use the Titanic and we changed it to this canoe. It's the same concept, right? You just don't want this to happen to you, quite honestly.
So if you have any questions, you can call or email Jim or myself. We do not charge you a fee to work with us. So if you call us and we talk through stuff, the insurance companies pay us to help you. You will not be writing us a check for us to help you. We also do Medicare plans, travel insurance, especially important if you have medical or Medicare, dental vision. We also do life insurance and annuities.
Right. And one thing today, I know we finished up a little bit sooner than we normally do. Rick Bailey, who is also an expert in life insurance and annuities and long-term care, had to go down to Florida and take care of his daughter down there. So normally Rick would be on here. He's going to join us Thursday for some more questions and answers. So I apologize. I know we probably had some more estate type questions we wanted to bring up, but Rick is really the expert in that area in terms of estate planning, legacy, gifts, things like that. So, and he'll be on Thursday and join us. He's down in Florida, but he will be joining us for that too. So that's why we're a little bit shorter today. So. And
then if you have questions, that's our contact information. and anything we can do to help. Yeah.
Absolutely. Happy to. We love talking to Christian Scientists.
Yeah, we do.
Now we're in about 30 states, I believe. It's easy to add another state on, but it's just an absolute pleasure talking to Christian Scientists all over the United States. Absolutely love it. So you make our day. I don't know if we have any questions. Are we saving them for Thursday, John?
Yeah, no questions have come in today. If anybody wants to send them in, you can send them in now. We can take one moment here, but other than that, we don't have any questions so far. And maybe we can just save them, and we can add some for Thursday as well, because sometimes people don't always know what questions to ask.
Right.
So,
and I know we'll have some. I've got a couple already. Some people have already sent me. They saw the invitation, so I've already got a couple. I can share those with everyone on Thursday, but that way it gives you a little time to think about what you want to ask also. So
perfect. In listening to you both, again and again and again, when we have these, the notion of having a plan is just so sensible and helpful. And when you see it, when you deal with families all the time, like we do, my golly, what a difference it makes. So,
well, it really does, John.
Thank you, Jim and Katie, for explaining these long-term care options. I learned something new every time we talked about this topic, and did as well today. And I love some of the new little, they're not called emojis. I don't know what those little bubble people are. I love those. And it reminds me that you can also watch a replay of all of our webinars, including this one, on our website, ardenwood.org. This presentation will be available in a day or two to get it back up on the website. Ardenwood is one of the charitable nonprofit organizations we hope you'll consider as a beneficiary when you make your estate plans. Donations are invaluable to our work here. Your contributions support our Christian Science nurses, education, and care services, as well as events like this one, which we hope are helpful. We love your feedback. You bring out the best in us. You really do. We have several upcoming events to tell you about. In October, there are 2 webinars on Medicare for Christian Scientists next week.
Yeah.
That's on Tuesday. You'll see Jim and Katie again. Yeah. Tuesday the 11th and Thursday the 13th. And please note, there are some key changes in 2023 next year that will have a positive effect on Christian Scientists and Medicare. So please tune in. In November, our last estate planning workshops will be on November 1st and 3rd, and Q&A on Medicare will also be on November 10th. Also in November, we invite you to join us for an online Bible presentation on the law that reveals health. And I just saw the mailings that we're going to be sending out, given by Evan McDonald on Saturday, November 5th. Evan's Bible research will inspire new views of a timeless truth. And in December, our annual Christmas celebration is on Sunday afternoon, December 4th. We hope you, your family, and friends will join us online for that. You can find details and register for all our online events on our website, ardenwood.org. So thank you again for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you this Thursday afternoon for the Q&A, the same time, same Zoom link. You'll receive a reminder email in the link with the link in it. So thank you again, and goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.